Good morning. Um, I am going to open the public hearing on SB 328 at 9 o'clock, but I must say that because I am here by myself and the other senators are not here, we will wait. The chair should be here fairly soon. I would say we will probably reopen, we'll reassess for at least 15 minutes. Thank you.
Senate Commerce will come to order. Senator Shanley will lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Senator.
You are welcome.
We are going to start with 328, and Jenny Horgan's going to start us off. Good start. Welcome, Ms. Horgan.
Good morning, Senator Ricciardi, Chairman Gannon. Thank you so much for allowing me to introduce this bill on behalf of Senator D'Alessandro. My name is Jenny Horgan. I'm the Policy Director for the Senate Democratic Caucus, and I'm here to introduce Senate Bill 328, relative to tickets in the third row. He then commented on how expensive the tickets were, nearly $175 each. I then stated, that doesn't sound right, and asked, are you sure that you are on the Palace site? He stated that he had entered Palace Theater as his first search term, and that he was looking at a map of the seating. I then asked, what is the URL you see? This is because the information we have heard in testimony of Senator Shanley's bill, Senate Bill 201, about this very subject, and he responded, you're right, it's not the Palace site. He then proceeded to the Palace site where he was able to purchase the exact same tickets in the third row for less than half the price. I wanted to relay this story for a few reasons. First, had I not been in the room when my friend, a very educated consumer, purchased the tickets, he would have grossly overpaid for them. Now, this is not only bad for him and me as consumers, but it's especially bad for the venue, the Palace, and all that has any of this additional revenue. Second, the price was just enough that we probably would not have purchased the tickets at all. And finally, if we had purchased the over-priced tickets and presented them at the Palace, there is no telling if the seats would have already been occupied. This has happened at the Palace before, and it's the staff and volunteers who have to bear the brunt of the consumer's anger, even though the venue is not at fault. I should note at this point that Kinky Boots was fantastic, and I'm looking forward to attending more shows at the Palace Theater. For all of these reasons and many more, I support this bill, believe that it is sorely needed to protect consumers in our local venues, and look forward to working with my fellow committee members to pass this bill. Thank you very much. Senator Donna M. Susie.
Thank you, Ms. Horgan. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Have a great morning. Mary Stewart from the AG's office. Good morning, Ms. Stewart.
Good morning.
How did you make out in the snow?
It's fine.
Good.
Thank you for having me. I'm Mary Stewart, Assistant Attorney General from the Attorney General's Office, Consumer Protection. Thank you. So we don't support or oppose the bill, but we do appreciate the work that you all are doing to pass this bill because we recognize it as a big consumer problem. So I have a couple comments primarily regarding enforcement, exclusively regarding enforcement, and I'm just going to comment on each of the sections just in the order to make it easier. So with respect to section 1, the way that it's phrased, in order to sell a ticket, the seller has to disclose the tickets are being sold pursuant to one or more of the following conditions, and then you have A, B, and C. My only observation on that is that a person could, under the language of the statute, provide all those disclosures, A, B, and sold, and if that's the intent that you're trying to accomplish, that's fine. But if you want it to be specific, like this seller doesn't own this particular ticket, you may want to do more like an if then or some other sort of language in that section. But otherwise, that seemed fine. For B, using bots to purchase and resell tickets to an event or performance, bots is not defined. That's number 1. And number 2, we're not sure how we would enforce that because not sure how you would investigate it. If somebody bought a ticket, if the AG's office were enforcing, they would you need to subpoena somebody to get information, but the person who sold the ticket may not be the entity that purchased the ticket, so just not really sure how that would work. Number C, selling speculative tickets, which means a ticket to an event or performance that is not in the reseller's possession at the time of the resale of the ticket. Section A says that a seller can sell a ticket if they don't actually own the ticket. And then section C seems to say you can't do that. So I'm not sure, those may be conflicting. Section C talks about a reseller's possession, and reseller is not defined either. So that's another thing just to look into for enforcement purposes. And then section D, reselling tickets employing unauthorized use of any artist name, venue, event organizer, graphic image, or other intellectual property, the artist, venue, or event organizer. I mean, that seems to be prohibiting the resale of tickets entirely. So it's kind of in conflict of allowing it and then not allowing it. And that is all that I have. If you have any questions.
Yes. No, but you gave us a lot to work on. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I just want,
Oh, I'm sorry.
thank you for that testimony. So would you, if, the sponsor and you were willing, you could make these corrections? And since it is basically a good bill, we just need to correct some of these.
Yeah, I think that Brandon Gerard, the Senior Assistant Attorney General, has been working with, I guess, Senator Chanley. Yeah, okay, so, yeah, a lot. So he's happy to continue to work with you, or you could call me as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Donna's not here. You already spoke for her. Does anyone else wish to speak on 328? Oh, Lou, I didn't see you. I'm sorry. I went right to Jenny. She's prettier than you. Sorry. Good to see you, sir. How did you getting in? Your wife drive?
No, I got a ride. I might say the driving is lousy. Really, really lousy. But I apologize for my lateness.
That's okay,
Thank
Tom.
you very much for giving me an opportunity.
I was late too,
speak.
those roads.
For the record, I'm Senator Lou D'Alessandro. I represent District 20, Manchester Wards 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, and 12. And I come before you as the prime sponsor of this bill, Senate Bill 328. And I know that Senator Chanley, I think, has a bill that's pretty consistent with this. And the problem that was presented to me is the resale of tickets. And the fact that there's a number, cost on the ticket, but by the time it gets to you for resale, the cost has dramatically escalated, and it's really taking advantage of people. Now, I didn't hear the AG's testimony with regard to problems with the bill, but I think we need a piece of legislation to stop this stuff, because it just is a situation where an individual that wants to go to an event and wants to pay a fair price, all right, the ticket price for the event is really eliminated from doing that on many occasions. And as a result of that, it's sort of gluttony on the part of those who buy the tickets and move them out so that people can't come. So you've heard a lot of testimony about that. I think this practice is becoming pervasive. It's even dwindled down to the Palace Theater in Manchester, where I heard from the person who runs the Palace Theater that this is becoming a problem. So I'm sure the little theaters throughout the state are having problems. I know that even our team in Manchester, the Fish Cats, it could be a victim of this situation, and it's a bad public situation, and it's a policy that really has to be dealt with. And if there are improvements to the legislation, certainly I'm amenable to listening to anything anyone has to offer with regard to changes. But the basic premise is solid. People are being taken advantage of by others, and that, I think, is a real disservice to the public. And it's something that we, who have a responsibility to protect the public, we should be active in terms of addressing this. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you. And again, I apologize for my lateness, but I thank you very much for hearing my testimony. hope that we can get this going, and if changes have to be made, certainly we'll make them in a positive sense, and get this taken care of, because it's a problem. And our job is solving problems. Life is a series of problem-solving activities, so that's what we're doing. So again, I thank you, and I apologize, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks. So you and the AG's office will work on an amendment?
Happy to.
Great. And
I'm working with the AG's office on a lot of things, so this
Okay,
will give us work today.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Yes, Senator Chandler.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the prime sponsor for bringing this forward. As you know, I think it's incredibly important. And the AG's office was so kind and so helpful in helping to work on this issue last time. And I just hope, I'm just asking the prime sponsor, if he is amenable, I am happy to continue working with Ms. Stewart from the AG's office and the prime sponsor to craft something that is really workable.
Great, very happy to do that, Senator, and appreciate your efforts on behalf of the subject matter, which indeed is, it's a problem, and if we can get together as a group and solve it, that makes it a better solution.
Thank you very much, Senator. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to testify on 328? Seeing none, we'll end that bill. Close the hearing. We'll just come to the Irish bill.
Okay.
This is
Can't go
the-
on consent then.
No, they don't want it to unless. I'm sorry. Wake me. I'm almost there, Senator. Okay, we will convene 5:19. The Honorable Senator Lou DeSalzandro. Good to see you again, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I come before you as the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 519 FN, an act that deals with evidentiary requirements to evictions based upon renovation and permits a discretionary stay of eviction for up to 6 months. And as all of us know, the vacancy rate in New Hampshire is what, 1%. The area that I represent contains a number of multi-family and multi-household residences, large buildings that are the old apartment style buildings that were built many, many years ago on the west side of Manchester to accommodate the workforce. Well, as people renovate these properties, and the average rent now is like $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, sometimes even $3,000 a month. The people who are occupying these buildings, and I might say that my first rent on the west side of Manchester a number of years ago was $15 a month, or $15 a week, excuse me. And we lived on the second floor of a multifamily home on the west side of Manchester on Tilton Street. Now, can you imagine today people paying $1,000 for that apartment, maybe even more? And the new dwellings that are going up in Manchester, the renovations as well as the new ones, are between $1,000 and $3,000 a month. Well, sure, you'd want to get rid of a tenant, right? Because you can revamp the property and make a fortune on it. What about the tenant who's been living there for a period of time? Where are they going to go? And you kick them out, you evict them so that you can renovate. This allows them an opportunity to stay, and you may be able to find something else for them. I think this is a practice, again, that's becoming pervasive throughout the area because of the fact that rents are so high. And I never thought I would see the day when you would rent a property in downtown Manchester for $3,000 a month. It's amazing to me. And again, I represent this area. I represent the area where most of this multi-family housing is located. You got a tenement building that has 6, 8, 10 families living in the building. And this practice of evicting people so that you can renovate is a problem that has to be dealt with. This protects the renter to some extent, and at least gives them an opportunity to stay, and gives them a period of time to find something else. I will say that those of us who represent urban areas, and I think that the last examples of real urban living in the state are the city of Manchester, and particularly the west side of Manchester, and maybe the city of Nashua, where they're getting rid of some housing now and replacing it with other housing. But these were available units at a reasonable cost. That's disappearing. And this helps to protect the individuals who live in that area. I'm talking about Coburn Street on the west side of Manchester, which is off of South Main. So I've seen it, and we really have to protect people to some extent. We can't do everything, but we can at least give them an opportunity, and that's what this piece of legislation does. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much for the opportunity to come before you, and welcome any queries that you might have.
So Cindy, you appreciate the landlord's position too, though, right?
Sure.
You might have invested with your wife, and that's going to help pay for the kids to go to school and stuff.
Sure.
So you want them to fix the units up so they're habitable and nice, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see this being a burden then if I increase it to 60 days? That I'm going to have a lot of people who are going to fail to pay the 60 days rent. They know they're going to get kicked out, so a lot of people don't pay the last month. Now you're doubling that. Is that fair to the landlord that now they're risking 60 days?
I realize that landlords need protection also. And right now, they're taking first month and last month as a security deposit. And I know I've had to deal with that with people who, with limited resources, have to post that. So finding the first month and the last month is pretty difficult at certain times. And I know that the Charitable Foundation has an opportunity for people to apply to get first month and last month. HHS has had a program in the past to aid people, and that protects the landlord as well as the tenant. I'd like to come to a situation where there's at least some kind of good relationship between both.
Thank you. Nope. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you again, and appreciate your forbearance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Kirsten Cornell. Morning, Ms. Cornell. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you for taking my testimony.
Thanks for
My name
coming.
is Kirsten Cornell. I am a housing attorney at New Hampshire Legal Assistance, and I am here to state our support for this bill. As you heard from Senator D'Alessandro, the bill essentially does three things. It will give tenants a time that they need to find a place before court proceedings begin. It ensures that the need to renovate the property is not a pretext to evict a tenant when another lawful reason is not present. And it offers the court some flexibility in the form of a discretionary stay to help those tenants who haven't been able to find a place to go by the time the court process has completed. I do want to make sure to be clear that during all discretionary stay periods, the tenant must pay rent weekly. And if they fail to pay rent, then the discretionary stay fails. I want to be clear also that this bill does not take away the landlord's right to evict tenants for the purpose of renovating their property. That very clearly falls within the good cause provision. NHLA supports all the components of this bill and urges the committee to vote in support of it. But I'd like to focus my testimony primarily on what we believe is the most important component, which is the 60-day notice period. I think everyone is aware that New Hampshire is in the midst of a housing crisis. New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority data indicates that 0.6 vacancy rate statewide is generally where we're at, and a healthy housing economy has about a 4 to 5% vacancy rate. I think another important data point to consider is that the 2023 Annual Homelessness Assessment Report to Congress found that New Hampshire had a 52% increase in homelessness between 2022 and 2023. This is the highest percentage increase of homelessness nationwide during that time. This stems from the fact that there simply is not enough housing. And I know that that is something that's being worked on by a number of organizations, and including governmental bodies, but the reality is right now that housing doesn't exist. Moving is extraordinarily burdensome and takes a great deal of time to find a place to go. And in circumstances of an eviction for renovation, it's a no-fault eviction. So the tenant didn't do anything wrong. But unfortunately, the databases that are used by landlords to screen tenants don't typically reflect the reason for an eviction. And so once a tenant has an eviction on their record, it makes it even harder for them to find a place to go. If they have additional time before the court process begins, so with the 60-day period, then they can avoid having a tarnished eviction a record, and they will at least not face that impediment. It gives tenants the opportunity to have more time to relocate. We do realize that property owners certainly have the right to renovate their apartments and to do such work. And that work also allows quality housing to be available in the state. And we realize that there's a need to balance the interests of tenants having access to shelter, which is a necessity in life, and the interest of the property owners to conduct business and control their assets. And we think, if nothing else, a 60-day notice period for an eviction to the need to renovate is a measured step to take toward balancing those interests. If I could take just one moment to address the question you raised about the 60-day notice period. In an instance where a 60-day notice period was issued and a tenant failed to pay the rent, a landlord could move forward on a non-payment of rent eviction in addition to the renovation, and that requires only a 7-day notice period. So that provision would not change in the law. The tenant would continue to be required to pay rent for the full 60-day notice period. And if they fail to do so, there's other remedies already available in the law to help the landlord with that issue. I'm happy to take any questions if you have, and I appreciate your time.
Just a question that I probably should know the answer to, but I don't, so I'll ask you.
Sure.
Yeah, does this apply to any amount of units? Like if I had my second floor and I'm living in the bottom, does it apply to that?
So this I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I
I
apologize.
knew you'd know something.
Yeah, no, it applies to restricted property. So that's
Okay.
properties that are, a landlord owns 3 or more single-family homes, or if it's 4 units or fewer in a single unit with the owner occupying one of the units.
Thank you. I knew you'd have it right off the top of your head. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
No other questions? Alyssa Margola. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Alyssa Margolin. I serve as Director of Housing Action New Hampshire. We're a statewide coalition of 80 organizations united to improve policy so all Granite Staters have an affordable place to call home. Our members are those who own, develop, manage, finance affordable housing properties, public housing agencies, supportive housing providers, homeless service agencies, and low-income family advocates. Indeed, the majority of our membership are landlords, and we are in support of this proposal. I won't repeat the data you've already heard, but I'll just bring up two issues. One is this idea of choice in the market. Right now, with a less than 1% vacancy rate in the rental market, there simply is not any choice. And I think that's what this proposal asks you to help with. Then there's the idea that a contract is a contract, and in this case, you're talking about an essential need, and again, not having choice. Not only is there not choice for people at the high end of the market, there's no choice for people who are making extremely low or very low incomes. And then finally, I'll say, then there's the human story behind all of this, considering issues around keeping your kids connected to their school and staying close to your employment. These are the two issues that come up. And the biggest gift policymakers can give those families is the gift of time, while also protecting the interests of landlords and making sure that they have revenue, a chance to renovate, and improve the market. So we ask that you support this proposal. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. That concludes 519, unless someone else wants to, oh, I'm sorry, maybe I missed you. I didn't see that you'd checked off speaking though, but come on down. No, that's okay. Come up and introduce yourself.
I'll go ahead and come up with, Rachel Gabby first. It's the first day back, I apologize.
That's okay.
I'm up here for support. This is their first time coming to a setting like this. These are two tenants from Manchester.
Sounds good. Just introduce yourself again on the mic. That'll be great.
Hi, my name is Rachel Gagne, and I live in Manchester. And the building that I lived in, we lived there for 24 years. And we got evicted on the renovation evictions because that's all they could get us on. And the way it worked out is our landlord, okay, we worked for him, Charlie, and we gutted the whole building within that 24 years. So there was no renovation that needed to be done. But these people bought the building and they told the courts that, oh, it's a complete gut job. We have to gut the whole building. All they did is slap on some paint. We asked them if we did the work that they wanted in our apartment, can we stay? They said, no, we want to start with fresh tenants. So therefore, they evicted everybody out of the building. And it was just so traumatizing to my husband. He had a mild stroke. He had a grand mal seizure. He now suffers from AFib for it. And he has to take seizure medications for now because it stressed him out. And we've been in one place for 24 years and we just got uprooted for nothing. Just because they wanted to start with fresh tenants. We did all the work. We gutted the whole building, and when it came to like plumbing and stuff like that, of course we got the professionals in for that. And we did the finishing touches. 2 weeks before the building even hit the market, the building was inspected, passed with flying colors, no problems. And these people came and looked at it. They had their building inspector come in and check it out. It passed inspection twice inside of a month with no problems. You tell me what renovation needed to be done. And then they turned around and evicted everybody. Renovation purposes. They shouldn't make it so easy for landlords to get away with that, especially when the whole building is up to code. I mean,
Thank you, Ms. Gagnon, for your testimony. Sorry about your difficulties with housing. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming today. Appreciate it. Always is nice to put a face on a problem. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on 519?
Audrey's the other tenant that wished to speak.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll just, we'll stay
Sure,
seated. to
you
save
can
your
stay
time,
right there.
And I'll finish up after her.
Sounds good. If you can introduce yourself. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Audrey Ratcliffe and I live in Manchester, New Hampshire. My renovation eviction story starts with a substantial rent increase. I was paying $750 and they jumped it up $900 more. And we were slapped with multiple demand for rents. And we went to court on that, won in court. And they slapped us with the renovation eviction. That's where they got us. But they refused to help when I had my picture taken with Representative Pat Long on Twitter. It was just a whole mess. It was really rough to go through. This renovation bill will help in many ways without using it as a tool. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jessica Marchison. I'm a tenant organizer with Granite State Organizing Project, but I'm here as myself today. As you got to see with Audrey and Rachel, they've been used for many different reasons than other than what they are actually intended for. I'll go over her stories quite in depth with Representative Pat Long. If you look up # Axel Evicts, you'll find the picture that Audrey references. It was a picture of her and Rep. Pat Long standing up to the multiple evictions they were going through, helping my tenants organize. The next day after it was up on Twitter, she got a call from her property management telling her if she took it down, they would help her. Her and another tenant refused to take it down. The next day, they got renovation evictions. They knew those would go through. So sometimes these are used as retaliation, and those are really hard to show. Luckily for Audrey and that other tenant, they appealed to the Supreme Court and they won their eviction, which was amazing, but it wasn't on retaliation. It was on terms of notice. So notice wasn't followed properly, and that's how they won their Supreme Court appeals, which is huge for these tenants. But not every tenant gets to do that. So part of what I wanted to highlight while I was up here is that I had hundreds of tenants come through my clinic with renovation evictions, and I use that word so lightly because I don't know how many, if it's 1,000, 2,000, or 3 over the past couple of years that I saw people with renovation evictions. And I can say out of that number that probably 15 to 20% were legitimate renovations, to where I could go in afterwards and be like, wow, you did a great job with this building. I see why the rent is up. Most of the time it's, as one landlord has complained about the others, they're bad actors. They do a paint job real quick, maybe change the carpet, put in a couple of appliances, and that's it. But a lot of times what you hear is a landlord talking about multiple things they're going to do and then not doing them because that's all they have to say in court. There's nothing to substantiate. There's no standards to hit. There's also no easy way for a tenant to fight this later. Having this added to the 548 petition would be great because it would be an unlawful eviction to say I'm doing a renovation eviction and not actually do it, but to have a paint job. They have no other recourse. They just have to accept it. For Rachel, it took 10 months to get rehoused. And Audrey, you'll get to hear in the next bill that we get to hear how long it took her to find a place that accepted her voucher. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing none, no, thank you. Have a good morning. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on 519? Seeing none, this concludes the hearing. Thank you, Lou. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah. Going to. How do I skip him? How do I skip everything else? He's gonna come.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
Thank you. We're going into executive session. And we're going to bring up, what's the bill? We're going to bring up Bill 317. Come on up, Senator Bradley. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Being able to introduce this amendment 120. As you recall, last week, myself and Senator Mark Daly from Ireland were here to talk about the Trade Council. I told you I was going to bring in this amendment. So what the amendment does, on line 18 through 23, it sort of outlines the duties of the Trade Council established by Taylor Caswell and the Secretary of State. The purpose is to advance bilateral trade and investment, initiate joint action on policy issues of mutual interest, and promote business and academic exchanges. Similar language to trade councils that have passed in New Jersey and West Virginia. It better delineates the membership of the Trade Council starting on line 24, 2 senators, 2 House members, the commissioner, the Secretary of State, BIA, that's new, the Division of Economic Development at BEA, they're the ones that deal with trade, the university system, other similar pieces of legislation in Virginia, West Virginia, excuse me, and New Jersey do have university membership, and then 2 public members appointed by the governor. The other change is on page 2, line 8, Roman V. The Trade Council is authorized to raise and accept funds through direct solicitation, et cetera. This is so that the Trade Council can function, but it has no cost to the taxpayer. And then on line 12, it creates a special fund for those funds to be deposited into. So I think that this, is very close to what's happened in other states. And I think based on, the testimony, and you heard Senator Daly last week, it'd be wonderful if we can proceed with this legislation. So there you have it.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any questions?
No.
Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're in executive. You can make a motion.
I make a motion ought to pass on the bill with amendment.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have, we just have to have a motion on the
Oh, okay. Okay. So. And That'll conclude the,
Now we just have to vote.
okay, as amended. So we're voting on the ought to pass as amended. All in favor? Aye. No opposed? Thank you.
Who do you want to?
I'll take it up. Yep. So make the motion.
Come out of executive session.
Seconded by Senator Shardy. We'll go back to that. Okay, the Senate will reconvene and reopen Senate Bill 518.
Good morning.
You right, Donovan, I was looking for you. I was going to call someone else because they didn't see.
I'm very tall, but I hide in the back sometimes, you know?
You're skinny, so it's a good thing. Go ahead, Senator Fenton. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you as well. Happy to be here. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I am State Senator Donovan Fenton. I represent District 10. I am here to introduce Senate Bill 518, relative to incentivizing landlords to accept housing choice vouchers. This bill has been a work in progress between various housing stakeholders and the Landlords Association. It creates a state fund to incentivize landlords and property owners to accept Section 8 housing vouchers. We all know the housing market is very slim right now, and such little vacancy rates are pushing us towards a cliff. When we can't get individuals into these units, they end up on the streets, and it just creates a bigger problem for everyone. When working with the various groups on this bill, we learned landlords lose the first 2 weeks of rent because they are waiting for that Section 8 voucher to be verified and inspected. Why would a landlord want to wait when they can find a tenant that will pay immediately? It's not that landlords don't want Section 8, but many landlords are small business owners and do not want to lose revenue. A lot of municipalities and other organizations offer such incentives, but they vary from place to place. This would create a state fund that would help those who need it most. And I am happy to take any questions. I made it nice and short for y'all.
Thank you, Senator Fenton. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, you're getting off easy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Have a
it.
good day.
I'm running back to my
How's the
committee.
ride from Keene?
It was actually not good.
Okay, I figured
It's very snowy. My kids are at home, no school, and my wife is pulling her hair out, I think, so.
very good. Have a good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Vanessa Blaze. Good morning.
Good morning, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing me today, and thank you for coming out in this weather. I know some of you have a distance to go, and we appreciate you being here. My name is Vanessa Blaze, and I serve as the Director of Policy and Planning for the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I am providing testimony today on behalf of the DD Council membership, which believes this bill would have a positive impact on the disability community. Our council by law is comprised of 60% of people with developmental disabilities and parents or guardians of people with developmental disabilities. And these members are volunteers who advocate for disability justice. With the cost of housing in our state at exceeding record levels and a vacancy rate that hovers below 1%, the race for voucher-friendly housing becomes even more critical. This particularly affects people with disabilities who are more likely living in low-income households with less housing choices. It is estimated that over 60% of New Hampshire's housing choice voucher holders are people with disabilities or people who have disability in their families. In my experience as a housing advocate, I've had the opportunity to speak one-on-one with landlords who had yet to fully understand the benefit of being a voucher-friendly landlord. Many have expressed interest in incentive programs. This legislation will not only provide incentives to landlords, but also provide training and support to tenants who use the vouchers, increasing stability for both the renter and the landlord. The state of New Hampshire is the only New England state that does not ban discrimination against voucher holders. Until this is corrected, we believe that incentive programs will increase the ability for people with disabilities and their families to acquire safe, stable, and affordable housing that better suits their needs. I'd also like to read a couple of comments that I received from a couple of landlords in the Manchester area who became voucher-friendly landlords. One of these comments comes from Craig St. Pierre, and he is the president of St. Pierre Interests. He said, in my own rental portfolio, I almost exclusively provide affordable and workforce housing. Within the last 2 years, I created a building for the specific purchase in Manchester. By accepting voucher holders, people were able to upgrade from rooming houses and other group settings in their journey from homelessness. In addition to the direct benefit to the tenants housed, a flow of opportunity was made for folks downstream. People in shelter environment could now move to transitional or group housing, and shelters had more room to help the unhoused and the most vulnerable. It was good for the community, and it was a responsible way to grow my business while helping. In terms of provider benefits, the consistent voucher payment creates portfolio stability and protects against market fluctuations and vacancy. There were also incentive programs I used at the time that helped in the creation of the units themselves. Property owners and investors always need to balance risk and reward in portfolios. Any program that can help tip that scale in favor of a win-win for voucher holders and landlords is a win for the community and the state. Another comment that I received from Andy Winslow, who is also a voucher-friendly landlord in the Manchester area. He states the specific challenges that I face to bring affordable housing to market is that I am competing on cost against developers who are targeting market rate rents, which is often much higher. That means those developers can pay more for properties, pay more for contractors, architects, engineers, etc. It also means it is easier for them to raise money from investors so they can bring more cash to the table for purchases. Subsidies like the ones in this bill can help to level the playing field, but it remains a challenge to compete in this market, meaning I often can't pay the asking price for properties that would be great candidates for affordable housing. So these properties end up going to much higher price developers and end up in higher rate housing. All that said, I remain passionate about making the model work and continue to search out more opportunities to bring high quality, affordable housing to market in Manchester. Again, the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disabilities supports this bill, and we hope that you will take it into consideration.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, senators? You're going to help me because, again, I'm a jack of all trades. I cover so many different areas as do all the senators. But so someone comes to you and they've got they have a voucher. Is that are they going to a specific type of housing unit that's affordable housing? Is this just to go to a general house and do they, general apartment building? And this is going to be a voucher to subsidize? Just tell me how it works a little bit better. And B, as a landlord, wouldn't I be happy to know there's a voucher program? Because I know I'm going to get money. It's coming from the state that you're subsidized money. So just walk me through again. The other guys can take a break and you can just get me up to speed.
So to be clear, you are questioning the process of the voucher program itself?
It's new to me, so.
Okay, so if first I would like to start with the waiting list to get a housing voucher is years long.
Okay.
Typically, when you do finally receive your voucher, you have about 90 to 120 days to find a place to live.
Okay.
If you cannot find a place to live, you lose your voucher. There are very, very few voucher holders.
I ask as we go that way, I'll pick up things.
Okay.
With the voucher, is it set at the market rate for an average apartment, say in Manchester? Or
I would say,
how's that?
Yeah, so market rate is a little bit of a contentious term
Sure.
that is used. The voucher holders, the vouchers are set by a rate that is determined by HUD.
Okay.
Because it is a federal program. It's what is considered market rate these days is actually too high for HUD to accommodate. So a lot of landlords who want to become voucher friendly, one of the obstacles for them is that they have to lower their rents lower than market rate. Unfortunately, it's not actually an affordable housing rate. So it's kind of like that in-between spot. So typically, if you receive a voucher, you have to find a place to live. And because there's not enough voucher-friendly landlords, there are not enough places for people to live.
And so what is this bill doing? It's raising, tell me what this is doing specifically.
This bill will give incentives
Yep.
for landlords to become voucher-friendly landlords.
And what is, so it's going to be making up a difference in rent to a market rate type thing, or?
No, it'll be, so incentive programs are usually, they will get some kind of tax breaks depending on, and for example, I worked with one of the landlords that sent their comments, and we helped advocate for them to get grant funding from the state. I call it a mosaic of funding and incentives. The other thing this bill does is it helps to support the tenant so that once they do get into an apartment and they are using their vouchers, it helps them to stabilize their situation so that there isn't a big turnover.
Okay.
Which happens to be one of the concerns that a lot of the landlords have.
Thank you for your primer for me. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Thank you. Seeing none.
You're welcome.
Audrey, you want to come back down? State your names again for the record. Thank you.
Jessica Marcus, Manchester, New Hampshire.
Audrey Ratcliffe, Manchester, New Hampshire. And Jessica Margison, Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm going to go ahead and start off. For Audrey, she would prefer for me to speak, so I'm just going to go ahead and combine ours. So to speak a little bit more on the voucher situation, I could probably have a textbook size of all the different vouchers out there, anywhere from HUD to BASH to all the different types. Audrey, for instance, when she received her voucher, after 3 months it expired. They had to reapply for a different voucher, and she had 3 more months. Luckily, it only took her 6 months of searching to find a place, but the reason she got it was a family friend was a referral. Not everybody has that family friend or referral, which leads to longer wait times. For instance, I had one tenant that came through after a year of searching. She completely lost her 2-bedroom voucher. In the end, I had to bring her to the hospital to be admitted because it was such an emotional breakdown. She wasn't safe on her own anymore, and she asked me to bring her. So I've done that twice now with tenants that have gone through this. When you think you have a voucher and you think you have housing stability, only to be told no multiple times and treated horribly by the stigma of it, although you didn't create that, it's terrifying. So at least during Audrey's time and like Rachel's time, they had the hotel and we had the emergency rental assistance, but we don't have any of that now. So I want to make sure I have everything here. I want you to notice, if you're able to take a glance at rent ads, what you're going to see is commonly ads saying no Section 8. Sometimes they're even lumped into things like no smoking, pets, or Section 8, as if it's the bottom rung of it all. I've had luck with this as a tool, so while it is not seen as discrimination to deny a tenant based on the status of a voucher, this is a tool to circumvent that, and it's really helpful. So I hope that this passes and it has my full support. Thank you.
Thank you both. Nick Norman. Good morning, Mr. Norman.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Nick Norman. I am a landlord for many years. I work with landlords across the entire state of New Hampshire, coordinating our legislative initiative with a membership of about 3,500 landlords across the state. And I'm pretty knowledgeable on this program. As we speak, I encourage you to ask me questions. Senator Donovan called me quite some time ago. He and I have worked on this bill. We support the bill. I think it's a good concept. Section 8 has been before the legislature quite a number of times. And the essential issue with Section 8 program is the program itself. The reason that landlords tend to not want to be participating in the program is because it has many extra costs associated with the program. It's really troublesome to follow the program. It's got so much red tape and forms and regulations and expenses, extra costs. Most landlords don't want to be involved in it because of that loss of money. So what we actually need to do is we need to fix the program. If the program was supportive to property owners and attractive financially to property owners, they would do it because it makes good business sense. Well, to fix the program means we have to get HUD to change their culture and their rules and regulations from the federal level. That seems pretty unlikely to me. I mean, that would be the solution, but that's probably not in our grasp, needless to say. So the second best idea, which I've actually mentioned to the legislature quite a number of times, is to do what other states have done and create some form of a loss mitigation fund. This program is a first step towards that. So it will create incentives to help landlords participate in the program. That's good. And we support the program because it's a step in the right direction. We need to have carrots and incentives to entice housing providers to use the program. More landlords, housing providers using the program will help to ease the affordable crisis of, not many rentals available. The issue that needs to be addressed is that, as written, this bill will probably have very, very little effect because it's not reimbursing the extra costs that are associated with taking a Section 8 tenant. Senator Donovan and I have talked about this quite a bit, and he's very much in favor of amendments that would fix those issues. As we were working on it, he felt like we didn't have enough time to really put together language to address everything that would need to be addressed. I'm very, very happy to work with you to help create that kind of an amendment. So there's a few issues that I think that we should take care of in the bill to make it effective. And our goal is to make it effective, to have more housing providers use the program. One is, the way the bill is written, it only provides incentives to housing providers that would be new to using Section 8. So that's really not going to do very much for us in this state, because there's quite a record of housing providers trying Section 8 for a while and then realizing they don't want to be part of that anymore. It costs extra money. They lose money. It's a headache. So incentivizing a few new landlords, housing providers to accept Section 8 is just a really temporary thing. You'll find that over the years, housing providers have been dwindling in terms of who accepts Section 8. So we need to make it so that this bill will incentivize all landlords, any housing provider that will accept Section 8. The next major piece is, in terms of concept, is that we need to make the bill so that it reimburses the extra costs. And I think it actually should be delineated in the RSA that the bill will be used to reimburse this extra expense, that extra expense, this extra expense, and so forth. In what I've given you, towards the bottom of it, there is a list of the extra things that we, right off the top of our heads, have been able to think of that could be addressed, that would be helpful. Any of that that can be addressed is helpful to get housing providers to take the program. But the thing that you have to realize is that these costs are ongoing, as every year there's extra costs. It's not like you give a housing provider an extra $1,000 and they say, whoa, great, I'll take that and I'll use the program. From what I hear is housing authorities have been offering that and it's having little effect. So there's probably a lot more that I could say, and I really would encourage you to ask me questions. And I'm very happy to work with you towards an amendment that would make this have a high positive effect in New Hampshire.
Senator Shanley? No?
No, thank you.
I'm not one to shy away from questions, but I'm okay right now. Thank you.
Oh, got it. Reach out to me, please.
Okay. Ben Frost.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Ben Frost. I'm the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Legal Officer for the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. We are, among many other things, we administer the statewide Housing Choice Voucher Program. New Hampshire receives something under 10,000 Housing Choice Vouchers from HUD annually. And this is a federal program, as Mr. Norman pointed out. New Hampshire Housing administers about 4,500 of those statewide. The balance are administered by the local public housing authorities in, I think, 19 different communities. Not all of them are voucher administrators. And I'm happy to explain the details of the program, Mr. Chairman. I know you had some questions for earlier speakers. This is a federal program. It's administered by HUD, and we get an annual allocation and a budget for a certain number of vouchers and a certain amount of money, and we cannot exceed either one of those limits. So in some cases, depending upon the market performance, we may not utilize all vouchers. In other cases, we may utilize all the vouchers, but not all the budget, depending upon the mix of where the vouchers are going, because these are the name is Housing Choice Voucher. It is a portable voucher awarded to an eligible person who needs assistance with their rent payments because of their income limits. And that means that the person who is awarded a voucher, after spending maybe years on the waiting list, have to find a landlord who will accept that voucher. These are, and Mr. Chairman, you earlier asked whether this was for subsidized housing. No, this is for market rate housing. So the voucher recipient gets a voucher and then has to find a landlord who will accept the voucher. Mr. Norman pointed out that there are a lot of program restrictions and limitations and rules and regulations, and that is absolutely true. And it's the hallmark of federal programs that they have a lot of red tape. I would love to think that we could change that program, but it is, as he pointed out, a particularly high bar and not within the New Hampshire legislature's power to do, unfortunately. That said, it is an extraordinarily valuable program. It is what I call the bottom of the safety net. Because it helps people who are in dire need of assistance with rental payments, especially now in New Hampshire with, as I'm sure you're very well aware, the crisis of housing affordability that we have. It is a crisis brought on by lack of supply, which classic supply and demand, low supply, high demand, prices go up. And we've seen prices go up for rental housing since 1995. When, after the recession of the early 90s, prices were pretty stable. We had a surfeit of housing in New Hampshire, and then by 1995, that surplus was gone and prices started to go up on both the ownership side and the rental side, but we're focused here on the rental side. The Housing Choice Voucher Program, as we administer it, serves roughly 67% of the voucher recipients are either elderly or disabled. The balance are working in lower wage jobs. So these are people who have a really hard time competing in the market, even with a Housing Choice Voucher. This bill, Senate Bill 518, which we support, and Senator Fenton, I think, distributed an amendment, which we also support, would provide grants to both landlords and to tenants to help with the costs associated with the program. On the landlord side, this would not be, it would simply be a grant for saying yes to accepting Housing Choice Voucher tenants. And as fashioned, it would be for landlords who had not previously, at least within the preceding 3 years, accepted vouchers. Or, and this is where the amendment comes in, which adds flexibility to this program, which would be administered by New Hampshire Housing. Other forms of similar rental assistance. So there are other programs, not just the Housing Choice Voucher Program, but that's really the big one that we're talking about. So this would be an incentive, really an incentive for a landlord to say yes to a Housing Choice Voucher recipient as a tenant. And I'll note that first off, New Hampshire Housing, we're not a state agency. We're a so-called instrumentality of state government. We have an independent board of directors. We receive no operating funds from the state. But we have created a pilot program that has looked at whether an incentive program would work. And we've funded it this year. And so far, so good. So over the past 6 months, we have allocated over $61,000 and secured 78 new landlords who are willing to accept Housing Choice Voucher tenants. So we call that as a pilot program. That's a small measure of success, and I think is an indicator of what a larger program, as envisioned by Senate Bill 518, would create. It is really tough out there. So for landlords who might not want to bother with the rigors of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, they have plenty of other tenants they can choose from. For tenants, it's just tough to find a landlord who will accept a Housing Choice Voucher. These added incentives to landlords and to tenants to help them deal with some of the costs of moving, for example, or with a security deposit. If they don't have the cash and they can't put down the security deposit, that's a barrier for their...
Ready for a question, Ben?
I'd be happy to take questions,
Awesome.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Shardy's going to start off.
Good morning. Nice to see you, Ben.
Good morning.
Given the fact that it's a federal program and you indicated, the restrictions and red tape that come with a federal program, are you in favor of the bill as it is with the amendment, or the comments from Mr. Norman about incentivizing all the landlord owners and that the bill needs to make sure it reimburses for all those costs? Are you amenable to that, or does that red tape with the federal government prohibit that?
Senator, it's a great question, and the federal regulations would not prohibit that, because this is really, it's a state program that would be not layered on top of, that's the wrong imagery I'm trying to create here, but would be in addition to the federal program. So it would complement the federal program, not compete with it, not pose barriers to it. So I see no adverse connection between the two. I do want to point out that as written with the amendment that Senator Fenton proffered this morning, gives New Hampshire Housing substantial flexibility in designing a program to meet needs of voucher recipients and of landlords. So I understand Mr. Norman's position. I encourage the committee not to be hyper-specific, but my pledge is if this becomes law, we will work with Mr. Norman and other stakeholders to design a program that meets the needs of everyone.
Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I may be interrupting where you may have been going in this direction anyway, but I'm really interested in hearing about the pilot program and what and maybe you can direct me to a place where there's some report on or assessment of the pilot program, or you can tell us now a little bit, of the 78 new landlords that you have, is there anything you can sort of deduce from why they joined and what the benefits are? And is it any specific kind of employee, landlord or location where they are found?
Senator, these are great questions, and my answers will be limited in part because we haven't done an analysis because it's so new.
Yeah.
We've only been running it really this year, this fiscal year starting July. But typically speaking, these are going to be more mom and pop landlords, but not exclusively. Some larger landlords likewise are choosing to do this. It's essentially a cash payment to the landlord as an incentive, and they can do with that what they want. They can put it into the unit, they can add it to their profit, whatever they choose to do. It's simply an incentive for them to say yes to housing choice vouchers. As far as the distribution statewide, I'd be happy to take a look at that and see where they've wound up.
Any follow-up? How did you promote this pilot program, and how did you find the new landlords?
Senator, that's a great question. I will have to get back to you on that.
Thank you.
I do know that we have a pretty robust network, and we try to get word out to as many different people as we can.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we have folks like Nick Norman helping with that as well.
Once they get in, so I decide to, my apartment building, take Section 8. Am I tied into that? Is it hard to get out? What if it's not working for me? I don't like the program. It's too much paperwork. Can I bail out?
Mr. Chairman, you can bail out after the lease runs. So it's essentially a three-way contract.
Yep.
New Hampshire Housing and the landlord and the tenant. And we're acting as the agent of HUD in that regard. New Hampshire Housing is. So if it's a 12-month lease, then it's a 12-month agreement that you'd be signing on to.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Kirsten Cornell. Kirsten, I'm learning so much this morning. Everyone else probably knows everything, right?
I'm sure that's not true. Again, Kirsten Cornell, New Hampshire Legal Assistance. I'm here to express our support for this bill. I would note I have not seen the amendment, so I'm speaking to what the original bill was submitted as. People have already given you most of the information I was going to, so I will just try and do some highlights. We get a lot of requests for assistance at NHLA from folks who have waited, 5-7 years to get a housing choice voucher, finally have one, and then aren't able to place it in time and lose it or on the verge of losing it. And there's nothing we can do to help them because there are very specific constraints around extensions that are allowed because of HUD. Once a person loses that voucher, they return to the bottom of the waiting list, and it's another, up to 10 years in some cases. People who are those who, use the voucher program, qualify for the voucher program, without the assistance of a voucher, they're spending well over 50% of their income on rent alone, which puts them in a very precarious financial position where not even an emergency will result in homelessness, just a car, breaking down. So for landlords, vouchers mean guaranteed timely subsidy payments. Tenants' income, if the tenant's income changes, then the amount that the housing authority pays will change. So by definition, a tenant's rent is affordable once they're in this program. It's just very difficult to get into this program, though it is one of the strongest supports available. During the current housing crisis, tenants need every bit of support and protection that they can get. And so to the extent that this will help additional landlords be willing to take Section 8 vouchers and help the clients who I try to help every day, I very much support this bill. Thank you for your time.
You're going to help me again on the prime.
My best.
So if someone's struggling making, what are the HUD standards? Is it like 35, 40, 50%?
So a tenant would pay 30% of their income toward the rent amount, assuming that the rent for their apartment falls within the HUD market rent, which is set at the federal level.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alyssa, and I should remember how you pronounced it. Margola?
Margolin.
That was close.
Good morning, Alyssa Margolin. I serve as Director of Housing Action New Hampshire. We're in support of Senate Bill 518 and the amendment. I won't repeat what our prior testifiers have shared. I will tell you a little bit of the history you asked about, Mr. Chairman. Using a portable housing choice voucher in the private market was a major policy priority of the Nixon administration, and it was actually the first bill that President Ford signed into law. The idea was to create choice for voucher holders and allow people to move to opportunities, whether that be employment, school systems. It is a program that only 1 in 4 households who would be eligible actually ever receive a voucher because the waiting lists are so long. It's hard to think about other programs for basic needs like food. So my daughter's a social worker who works with young pregnant and parenting teens, and most of them receive food and WIC assistance. It would be hard to give someone food assistance and say you can't access a supermarket, but in many ways what we've created is this really important safety net program, but a very long waiting list. And then add to that an extremely tight market and a state like ours where we don't have source of income protection. It's getting harder and harder for voucher holders to find places to live. And so most housing authorities are very generous with extensions, and they'll allow people to continue looking. And I know New Hampshire Finance Authority will give extension after extension as long as the voucher holder is actively looking. I connected with 2 heads of other housing authorities, one in Keene and one in Portsmouth. What I learned in Keene was that he has found that because of the tight supply, he's seeing less success for his elderly and disabled folks being able to access units, and lower success rate in ever finding one, though they continue to provide extensions. And in Portsmouth, they have been partnering with another pilot called the Affordable Housing Incentive Program. And they were an early pilot, even before New Hampshire Housing's pilot, and they helped house 150 tenants with vouchers in the Seacoast area, which is an extremely tight market. So I think what we're seeing is we've piloted this concept of incentives. It works. And I think Senator Fenton's bill is essentially saying, let's bring this statewide and try this as incentive approach to a very severe problem. So it has our full support. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Good testimony. Seeing no questions, you have a great day.
Thanks.
That would be it on this. That's it. The Speaker's Center. Okay. Okay, that brings to conclusion 518. Are you coming back, Senator?
I am.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't know. Regina would come in and not be happy with me. Not sure. Thank you. Oh, nice and short. Yeah. Yeah. Senator, sorry to slow you down. We are now going back into session. We're going to start SB 366, and the Honorable Senator Regina Birdsall is bringing it forward. Good to
Thank
see
you,
Senator.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, for hearing Senate Bill 366. For the record, my name is Regina Birdsall, State Senator for District 19, which encompasses the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham. And I am the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 366, which is preventing the, basically preventing the CCP from purchasing any land in New Hampshire. Since I heard about the Chinese company Fufeng purchasing agricultural land in North Dakota near Grand Forks Air Force Base, I've been really concerned about the potential of the land grab by the CCP, which is why I chose to bring this bill forward. This legislation is similar to a bill introduced in Florida, which our AG penned an amicus brief in support of their legislation. Excuse me. This bill bans the CCP from purchasing any land near a military base, New Hampshire National Guard facility, and any major infrastructures in this state. I'm going to try and not read, because I already sent you the, I think Marie sent you the, my testimony, but there are some excerpts that I want to bring forth. In 2021, a Chinese company called Fufeng Group, based in Shandong, China, bought a plot of land in North Dakota as a site for a manufacturing facility, a proposed project that would be based within 20 minutes of Grand Forks Air Force Base, which houses our nation's most sensitive military drone technology and the backbone of our military communications globally. While the Air Force is not outwardly opposed to the purchase, a major at the base circulated his concerns about the project, which brought broad bipartisan concern, including a statement from the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review, stating the location of the land close to this base is particularly convenient for monitoring air traffic flows in and out of the base, among other security-related concerns. One thing I will bring up, in 2017, and this is somewhat what concerns me. In 2017, the CCP passed a national intelligence law which allows the Chinese Communist Party to order citizens or company to assist in intelligent work. It also requires that any national, Chinese national that purchases land in anywhere is actually an extension of the CCP. So let's say someone has a son or daughter, a Chinese national has a son or daughter going to Exeter School. So that individual decides to purchase land or purchase a house near the school so that they can be close to their, unbeknownst to us, regardless of whether it's a private purchase, the CCP, because they are a Chinese national, the CCP actually owns that property. They are not allowed to purchase, they are not allowed to own property. Since 2017, and that goes to our military installations, because we do have a drone facility in the state. We have I've had to expand it a bit because it did not include the National Guard, so I expanded it to include National Guard, to include some infrastructure that are important to the state, let's say airports. But in 2017, federal officials have investigated Chinese land purchases near critical infrastructure and shut down a high-profile regional consulate believed by U.S. government to be a hotbed of Chinese spies, and stonewall what they saw as clear effort to plant listening devices near sensitive military and government installations. Another aspect, at the end of 2010, according to the USDA, foreign holdings of U.S. agricultural land reports China had invested in 13,720 acres in the U.S. All be told, at the end of 2020, China had a total of 352,140 acres of U.S. land. Currently, Hawaii, Iowa, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Dakota, and Oklahoma have already prevented this. It is understood that it is also understood that China can circumvent restrictions on land ownership by buying U.S. large corporations that own agricultural land or purchase interest in overseas corporations that do business in the U.S. What I will end with, I know this puts us as New Hampshire legislators in a tough spot because we are the live free and die state. But we can and should not make it easy for our adversaries to come into our state and work against us. I'm sure you will hear testimony against this, but any amendments that are made have to be very tight and very tightly worded, because remember, if one Chinese national owns property, then it's owned by the CCP in this state. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Just to help me understand, so a Chinese national then couldn't rent an apartment in Manchester if it was too close to the radar tracking station up in Goffstown?
I think this is a purchase.
Okay, should not own, lease,
Okay.
lease, possess.
Yeah.
Okay, just didn't know if we need to tighten up the language where it said lease and possess, but I'm good, thank you. Go ahead, Senator.
Yes, thank you. Just a very quick question. Critical infrastructure, I'm guessing the way it's worded, something like the Piscataqua River Bridge in Portsmouth would be included as critical infrastructure.
That is actually the federal.
It is, but.
Yeah.
But, would we restrict purchase near that because, air bases are federal too?
Well, isn't that very close to the shipyard?
Yes.
So, yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Senator. Seeing no other questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Johnson. Good morning, Mr. Johnson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rob Johnson, and I'm representing the New Hampshire Farm Bureau as the Federation's policy director. Farm Bureau is a federation of New Hampshire's 10 county Farm Bureau organizations, representing approximately 1,700 farmer families around the state, and then we also have another 1,200 or so supporting members. And we are speaking in opposition as the bill is introduced. We certainly share the concerns outlined by the sponsor, but the definition, and you just touched on it, but if you look at the definition of critical infrastructure is very broad. We feel it's too broad, and what we'd like the legislation to have is a little bit of flexibility in enabling the leasing for research and development purposes of farmland. And when I say that, we're thinking really of one example in mind. And Syngenta is a multinational company that our farmers and members use. They're a crop protectant and seed development and manufacturing entity. And They were founded and are headquartered in Switzerland. They were a merger of AstraZeneca and another entity 20 some odd years ago. And they were purchased by the Chinese Chemical Corporation 2017, 2018. And they operate worldwide, and we would hate that if the University of New Hampshire, whether it be the New Hampshire Ag Experiment Station or College of Life Sciences and Agriculture, had the opportunity to partner with them and bring in some research and development dollars. That would be a shame, because that research would be for New Hampshire and Northeast farmers. And that's the kind of specific example that we're thinking of, that this is so tight. If you may have heard in the news, in Arkansas, they passed a law prohibiting the sale and ownership of farmland and facilities in the state by the Chinese. And there was a seed company in the state, so it was a wholly owned subsidiary of Syngenta. And they are in the process of divesting. They have 160 acres of land. There was a small town and employed a number of people in that community. That seed company was the largest contributor to the Future Farmers of America in the state of Arkansas. So that's that type of thing. This definition is just so broad that there really is no flexibility. And in closing, I'll give you just some information, and I'll provide it to the committee. But this is obviously our national affiliate, American Farm Bureau Federation. It's a big issue nationwide. And in October, they came out with an article and some data on that. And I'll provide you with a copy. The paper copy didn't copy real well, so I can get the committee the link as well. It gives you all the charts. So I'll provide that. And then just to make you aware that in the Federal Registry, the USDA just opened up a docket on seeking comment on the reporting, because as you may well be aware, the reporting on this, it's self-reporting. So it's the data we have is just if somebody's coming forward. And the kicker is that if somebody comes forward late, reports late, they are fined. So there's no incentive to report after you've gone so far. And the article will get into it, just the monitoring and the data and how we would do it in New Hampshire is a challenge. That's not to say we are opposed to the underlying, what this is trying to get at, but it's just very broad. And just another piece, the author of the article I'll provide you, I contacted him, and he's an ag economist, and asked a few questions relative to New Hampshire, and found out that currently there is no farmland in the state of New Hampshire that has been registered as owned by a Chinese or Chinese national. The only farmland, which includes forest land in all of New England, that is registered as a 95.5 acre parcel in Penobscot County, Maine. And I'll leave my testimony at that, and as always, appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Warren Perry, you speaking?
I didn't intend to, Mr. Chair, but I'll just make a brief statement.
Sure.
I know you're running behind. For the record, my name is Warren Perry. I'm the Deputy Adjutant General for New Hampshire's Department of Military Affairs and Veteran Services, which includes the National Guard of the state of New Hampshire. We support the bill from that perspective. Actually, we just want to keep those things that we are doing that are involved in national security as if they are sensitive, and treat them as such, I guess. And if it's secret, I wouldn't say a secret is generally not a good thing to say in hearings here, but we'd like to keep those things controlled. So, any questions you might have.
Seeing none, thank you. Thank you. That concludes, unless anyone else wishes to speak, and it's a pretty empty room, so I don't think so. Concludes 366.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So done. We're adjourned.